Okay, everybody, welcome to our NetSuite recap. So there's two purposes for this tutorial. The first being that I wanted to cover the things that we talked about in modules 1, 2, and 3, and also to help you with your first quiz, and then more importantly to make sure that when you start to work on your comprehensive project that's due module 10, that you can come back and refer to this video if you're stuck on any of the instructions. So I'm definitely going to take a little bit of time here to recap the things that we looked at in class the first 2 weeks, and then some of the things you would have completed in your NetSuite assignments. So let's start. So first and foremost, when you are completing your comprehensive project, remember for your quiz, the first part of it, which you will receive as a Microsoft Word document, will be completed using your AVC shared in fall 2015 account. Okay? Any other questions about the quiz are going to be completed online in Slate. So part B is online Slate based, nothing to do with NetSuite, okay? For your project, your comprehensive project, you guys have the blank company. Okay, I changed the name of mine to this, but your blank company you will use to do the majority of your entries, and then you will be specifically asked in part B of the comprehensive project to run some reports that you're going to apply some Excel skills to, and that will be done using your AVC administrator account. Okay, so I want to make sure that you guys understand that you have to pay attention to the instructions. Sometimes you will be directed to AVC admin, and then sometimes you will be using your blank database. Okay, so now when we go through the motions, okay, we want to set up our NetSuite for the first time. What do? Okay, so everything here would be blank. We come to setup. Okay, this is our guide to start. What are the different things that we have to set up? And I would just move in order how they're listed here, and we focus in this course on the first three: setting up company, setting up accounting, and setting up payroll. Okay, so if we go to company, first thing that you guys are going to do is name your company whatever you want. Okay, there's no we have no restrictions for you guys here. Okay, so set up what you like. Set your county, state, province. You're going to have to select US because that's how NetSuite is set up. Okay, I picked New York, and then I had to make sure that the address that I inputted at the next step was a relevant New York address and postal code and all that, so that it works. And if you get stuck on that, don't worry, just send me a message and I'll help you out. Remember in NetSuite that anything that is denoted here with a asterisk, you must enter something in that field. Okay, you cannot leave it blank. Return email address. This was actually here on its own, but if you wanted to just put the email address that you log in with, that's fine. First fiscal month, we tell you in your assignment that we're just going to run with the calendar year, so January to December. Okay, and that's all you would do here. Click save and move on to the next. So the next is enabling the features. Okay, and it's as straightforward as it sounds. Okay, what features within NetSuite do we want to turn on? What do we want to enable? Okay, so in the company, under classifications, we talked about this. You know, our business might have multiple departments that we want to have segmented reporting for. We might have multiple locations that we want to have reporting for, classes of, revenue or activities, etc. So you'll be instructed on which ones of these that we want you to have selected, and then you're going to send us screenshots. Okay, if you have snipping tool or you just want to use your print screen function to send us, that's how you're going to do that. Okay, you can set up, if you want to be able to track products for costing purposes, to be able to allocate time tracking and billing, etc. This is all available to you here. If you have any international issues, but that's beyond the scope of what we're going to need for the course. Okay, Under data management, I think we talked about this, the filing cabinet, which I thought was probably one of the greatest things that I found about NetSuite. Under documents, filing cabinet, you can upload data, documents, emails, anything that you feel is a really important document that you might come back to and you want to have quickly and easily accessible to you within your ERP, instead of having to search through your email inbox, etc. Sometimes, for whatever reason, you might lose emails. So being able to store it here in what I would call a virtual filing cabinet is such a great tool to have. Keeps everything centralized and local, which is, the main goal when you're using a computerized accounting system, is to open up this one site and have everything that you need right there without having to look at multiple applications, without having to open up that filing cabinet and go sifting through and looking for documents that you might have printed, etc. It's all here for you. So I really do think that that's a great add-on to have in NetSuite. Okay. The next thing we look still under the enabling features, we look at accounting. What are the basic features? Well, we have accounting, obviously, so our general ledger, accounts receivable, accounts payable, our accounting periods. Okay, we want to be able to post transactions to periods, run reports by period, and close books at the period end. If you don't have this selected, then everything just kind of flows and feeds in together, and then you don't have a clear snapshot by period. So selecting that is obviously going to be important. Consolidated payments, we're not worrying about for us, but whatever we ask you to select here under accounting, you select it. Always remember to hit save. Tax is the one that's going to be a little bit tricky for us because of the US-Canada issue that we have with NetSuite, so we're not going to worry about that. Transactions. So what do we need to enable as a transaction for us to use in NetSuite for our company? Basic features like being able to prepare estimates within our ERP, sales orders, return authorizations, purchase orders, vendor returns, all things that if we have it all here in this one site, it all links together and it's easily callable. You're easily able to send it to someone. Whoever you give access to specific modules within your NetSuite will be able to look up these different type of features or source documents without having to ask multiple people for this information. Items and inventory. We didn't really look too much at this, but if you needed to have drop shipment and special orders, you could do so. You can do some work here with multiple vendors if you use gift certificates. Inventory, we're able to maintain an inventory of parts or finished goods that you want NetSuite to track. So that in itself is probably one of the greatest uses and advantages for many companies when they're using an ERP system like NetSuite, is if you can find a computerized, automated way to track your inventory without having to do it manually. That in itself makes the cost worth it. The multiple location of inventory is fantastic, right? If you have multiple cities where you have warehouses, you're able to see by different city what inventory you have in those locations. If you weren't in a computerized accounting type of environment, being, for example, in New York and having a warehouse, in Pittsburgh or somewhere in California, trying to get accurate information about what you have on site at another location would obviously be very, very difficult, and leaves room for errors. The next one that's important to us, particularly for the comprehensive project, is the employees setup. Okay, so you have to make sure, and if you were having trouble getting access to your payroll, you needed to complete this step first. Okay, so in your setup under enable features, you needed to come in here under employees and select payroll and make sure that you saved it, and then log out and then log back into your blank company, and then you would be able to see under employees access to what's called creating payroll. Okay, so step one is turning on the feature. Then you have the choice to enable the paycheck journal, direct deposit, and my favorite in here is the expense reports, and also the approval routing. Okay, so you can set up who needs, the hierarchy of who needs to approve people's expense reports or timesheets, which is such a great way to have internal control built into your computerized accounting system to make sure that purchases are and expense reports are not just going and flowing through for payment without someone going in and checking them. It's fantastic. Time tracking, another great one to be able to have your associates enter their time into the system, run whatever reporting you need to run, whether it's for allocating costs or whether it's for management's own internal purposes of being able to see if there's any abnormal activity in labor hours. It's a great tool to have access to. If you have commissions, then you would want to select these fields. And again, always hit save when you're making any changes, or else they will not hold through. We don't really need to worry about the last four because we're not looking at them in this course. So we're focusing pretty much on anything from company to employees. Okay, so make sure that you've gone through the slides from week 1 and week 2, okay, where you'll find the screenshots of how to, go through and enable these features. You don't necessarily have to do them. Save it for when you're working on your blank company, but just make sure you understand where you need to go within NetSuite to be able to turn on these features, okay? And like I said, I want you to think of it just from a very simplistic, straightforward point of view, okay? All we're doing in the setup right here is enabling our features. What do we need? If this were, our completely blank NetSuite system, what features are we going to tell the system that we need from it? And we find those are different choices in these different categories, okay? The next important thing that we looked at was the rename records and transactions page, okay? So here we talked about how, if you're already an existing company, you might have certain terminology that you prefer to use. Your customer, customer, vendor, if you want to call vendor, department. NetSuite might refer to it as department. You might want to call it, service location. So you would come in here and make the change. Same for class, other name, company, lead, prospect, etc. Okay, so this is where you're able to customize how your reporting will look based on what your own company's personal preferences or legacy terminology is. Okay, you don't have to use what it is given to you pre-built into NetSuite. So that's another great feature for customization. So you don't have to change the language that you've used in your company. The next is transaction names. Okay, so there's multiple, a plethora of different transactions that occur within NetSuite. Bills, bill credit, bill payment, credit card commissions, etc. So the default is that the name is the type, but then you can go in if something, again, is more relevant terminology to what you use, then you could change. Bill payment is actually, a vendor payment. Cash sale or check, if EFT, if you only take EFT, you could change it to EFT, etc. And then you can also change any abbreviations that you use, okay? So it's just, again, being able to customize your NetSuite to fall in line with your legacy terminology used within your company is fantastic. So if you're already existing, this would probably be an area where you would spend a little bit of time going through this customization process. If you're a new company, you might leave it as is because you might be indifferent, or if you're picky, you could go ahead and change it to whatever sounds more suitable to your business. I'm not going to make the changes. We don't have to do anything with this. Nothing here, guys. Countries, don't worry about that. There's nothing for us to do there. General preferences, okay, you can pick how you want your date format to look, your time format. I'm going to tell you guys just to leave it standard, but if you were picky and you wanted to make these types of changes, absolutely. One thing that we did talk about, which is going to resurface in the later modules when we talk about security controls, etc. Under general preferences is where you will set your password policy for your associates. Okay, so if we want strong, medium, or weak, password length, 10 characters. Are we going to set our password to expire in X amount of days so that associates have to change them? This helps to reduce risk of passwords being compromised. So that is going to be important for you guys to remember too. Okay. If we come down a little bit further here to classifications again, we talked about the departments and classes. So because I'm in my blank database, I don't have any departments set up. Okay, so what I want you to know is that if you are asked to create departments on your comprehensive project, this is where you would come. So we're still under the company section. You just scroll down to classifications and you select new. Enter the name of our department, whatever it is, enter it here, hit save, and the same goes with classes. If I want you to set up rent revenue, service revenue, investment revenue, whatever the case may be, same thing, you would come to classes, select new, enter the name, hit save. Okay, so this is what we need you guys to know under the company section. The next one is accounting. Okay, so following up on the setup process, the first thing is entering opening balances. So a little hint for you, there's two ways that you can set up opening balances. The first is by coming in here and actually entering the numbers manually. Okay, the second way is you can upload your existing trial balance for the last period, okay, via a CSV file. Okay, so a CSV file is a different type of Excel file, and there's a feature within NetSuite that allows you to upload your CSV into NetSuite, and it will automatically populate your accounts with the amounts in your trial balance. So for your quiz, it might be important for you guys to remember that. Okay, opening balances can be entered manually, or they can be entered via CSV file. Okay, for the purpose of your project, you're going to do it manually. Okay, so make sure you understand and that you're familiar. When you get to the part that asks you to do so, you come to Setup, Accounting, enter opening balances, enter your balances, and you select Save. Okay, accounting lists. Here you can create any relevant type of list that you might need. I don't believe we're going to ask you to do anything with this, so we're going to leave this for now. Expense categories. You can set up relative categories to for your company. So whether it's auto, whether it's supplies, office, meals and entertainment, etc. If there's value to you to have this expense category, you would do so here within the expense category section. Okay. The other critical accounting setup procedure is under managing of your GL, so managing your general ledger. This is where you'll see, after you've entered your opening balances, you'll have a completed chart of accounts. Okay, so you come here to chart of accounts and we see it. Okay, so these are all of the accounts that we have within our company, and then they'll have the balances associated with that account on the right. And if you have anything that strikes you as an error or doesn't look right, you can go in and make a change. If you need to make a change to a name, payroll, warehouse, and then you can add one for office staff if you want, you would do so here. Okay, so if you find that you've made an error in the naming of one of your accounts or in the balance, you could do so through your chart of account, managing your chart of accounts. The next important thing is to manage your accounting periods. Okay? In your new company, it's going to look to you like this. There's not going to be any period set up. So what we're going to ask you to do is to set up a full year. You set your first fiscal month to January. The year end, I think it's going to be 2016. Period format, we're going to run either choose calendar, 4 weeks, or the 445 cycle. Year in the period name, ending year of period. I'm not really sure what they're saying in that one. Sorry, guys. And then you would hit save to make sure that the periods are set up. And that's going to be really important when we look at things like the checklist to close the period, okay? We're going to have to navigate through the taxes, and I'm going to give you some more information specifically about this in a separate demonstration, so I'm going to skip that one for now. And then payroll will be the last thing that you guys need to set up. So you hit payroll, and then you would go set up payroll. Our preferences, we'll give you this. How much paid time off prior to pay period are we willing to pay? How many days of pay earning prior to pay periods, etc. You have to enter an email address. We need our main office location, type of corporation, paychecks. What features do we want to enable on the paychecks? We want to be able to pay expenses. We want to be able to pay commissions. We want to be able to pay sick time. And we want to be able to mask the social security number so that if someone drops it, no one else is able to find it. And then for reporting, because the great thing about NetSuite is that it will record all of our payroll liabilities for us. You know, we can set it up that we need to make these payments quarterly or for the year, and this way the reconciliation is done for us inside of NetSuite, okay? Default accounts, you would set which general ledger accounts your gross pay is going to get debited to, which account your payroll expenses are going to get debited to, and then which account the liability is going to go to, so your salaries and wages payable. And then you choose the account that payroll funds are actually going to come out from, and then you can set up the particulars of your bank information here. So this is where you would set up the default for payroll payment, and you would hit save. Jurisdiction and taxes has to do with tax, and I will cover that separately for you guys. Year-to-date information, we won't have any at this current point in time. And then mapping of payroll items. So what is important also in part of your payroll setup is that you're going to have to do, give me one sec, this, okay? If you go under lists, employees, payroll items, and then new, you're going to set up the different types of payroll transactions that are relevant to your company. So we would set up deductions, we would set up commissions perhaps, we would set up salary, we would set up vacation pay, sick pay, employer contribution. You set up whatever you want, and these are all the things that are the different types of pay that your associates can be paid. So again, your regular wages, commissions, vacation pay, sick pay. Okay, so that is a critical step in being able to set up your payroll, is that you need to set up these payroll items. And then once you have set up those payroll items, then your map payroll item section will be populated. So right now I only have two that I set up. I have regular salary and vacation pay, and then I just gave it its own little naming convention of regular and holiday pay. I haven't set up any deductions as of yet, so I'm going to have to do that. And then company contribution. So if you have a company RSP, etc., something like that, you would see them all here. And by mapping them, it just means that you've made it live within your payroll system. Okay. And I would hit save, and that would be completed. So that that's for the setup part of NetSuite. Okay, everything that you need to do will be within the company accounting and payroll section. Next, what was important that we discussed were things like under transactions, okay? This is where you can find all of your typical processes within the accounting department, your payables, okay? Being able to pay your invoices, okay? They call them bills. I would change them to invoices. There's these wonderful features inside of NetSuite where someone has to go in and approve the bills before they can get paid. I think we talked about in class how you have the choice. If your vendor sends you an invoice, you can actually take that invoice and enter it line for line as a bill, or that invoice would have been based on a pre-existing purchase order. So instead of manually entering the invoice information again, you can just build the purchase order and make payment to your vendor that way. So you can skip the step of having to re-enter the invoice. So that's a wonderful efficiency. The other great thing is that you can run a mass pay for all the vendors. Okay, you would click this and it would list for you all the vendors that have balances. Because I don't have any right now, it's not going to list any. Or you can choose just to pay a single vendor if you just need to pay one. So you have the choice to do either or. And then the other great one is entering vendor credits. Sometimes you'll get a credit from a vendor, and then you can isolate them separately within your system here so that you can track that separately instead of trying to bury it within the invoice. So that's another great use within NetSuite. Customers, the same type of idea. Sales. This is where we're going to find the invoices to our customers, or we can build them again from sales orders. Okay, we can prepare estimates in here. Someone will be able to approve sales orders to make sure that everything on them is on the up and up, and that the pricing is what we want it to be, and that a sales rep or whomever is creating the sales order didn't offer any type of pricing or terms on the sale that accounting is not comfortable with. So this is a great way to make sure that that's governed and monitored. Employees, okay, so under this section, entering of expense reports, which I'm probably sure I've said this 5 times. I think it's fantastic to have it built within your computerized system, because when you're trying to run an expense system that's separate from your ERP, it becomes really much more challenging to track the expenses. Everything is kind of separated. Here we can upload our receipts and attach it to these expense reports. We can set up the approval flow so we know that someone's gone in and taken a look at the expense reports and that they're valid and justified and all of that. It's really great just to have it here centralized all together. One-spot shopping is what I like to call it. This is where also you would create your payroll runs. You can check on the status of payroll. You can track time for your associates. You can look at the weekly timesheets. If you just need to create one check for some type of reason, you can do so. Approving your direct deposits. So when you run your payroll, these funds will be set aside for pay. Someone has to go in and approve that batch and release it for direct deposit. And then if there's ever an issue with your direct deposit, you would come here and look at your direct deposit status, and it will show you if it's paid, gone through, etc., the transaction ID and all that. So that's another great benefit, is being able to have those confirmation numbers for when you do have any kind of trouble. The other wonderful thing is, logically, one of the main things that we do in accounting is enter journal entries. Okay, so this is also something that you would have been asked to do in the first 3 courses of the certificate, and you're probably going to have to do on your comprehensive project. So how do we make journal entries? Well, it's a transaction, so we come under transaction to financial, and we make a journal entry. Okay, standard stuff. The entry will be generated. We want our date. If we're out of balance, it's going to show it to us up here, which is really, really fantastic. The posting period that we need it to be applied to, will be set up once you've set up your periods. If it's a reversing entry, you can enter the date that you want it to reverse. Most likely it would be the first day of the following period. If you need to defer the entry so it's not posted until the next month, you would do so here as well. You write your memo, pick your account, enter it here, enter your debit amount, add a line. It's not going to let me because I didn't complete the entry. Account receivable, enter the amount, and there's your transaction, and you hit save, and then you'll get your entry number that you can write as a reference to on an invoice or whatever it is that you are what you're processing. Okay, the other wonderful thing that I like about NetSuite is that if, for example, I was prepping my depreciation expense, okay, and this was something that did not change every month. I don't think I have depreciation set up in here. So assuming that I did have depreciation set up in here, I could do a debit to depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation, let's say it's for machinery. And if it's supposed to be $5,000 every month, then I can say, you know what, let's memorize this transaction. Let me see if I can do this for you. So let's just leave it as it is, just for the sake of... Okay, so 5,000 debit, $5,000 credit. I want this to happen every single month. Each line must have a zero is not permitted. Why am I not in balance here? I'm going to cancel and then I'm going to start it all over. Let's do reset. Okay, so let's do payroll 5,000. Oh, sorry guys, not sure why that disappeared. Let's try again. Sorry guys, my system is going a little wonky right now. Give me one sec while it gets its temperament back. So under transactions, financial, make journal entries. I'm going to leave the date. I'm going to select checkings. And I'm going to say 5,000, and I'm going to say add, let's add this journal entry makes no sense, but let's just leave it for now. There we go. And now if I say save or memorize, okay, I can't do it because I don't have my period set up in here, guys. But if this was an entry that we wanted to have recurring every single month, we would set up the parameters by picking the account that we want to debit and the account that we want to credit. And then we would go select memorize, and then we'll set the terms for when we want this transaction to go through. So that in itself is great because, you know, if you don't need to manually enter something that's redundant, especially if there's a lot of repeating entries that you have to make every month where the balances don't change. Okay, so that's the critical point. If the balances don't change and the accounts don't change, then you would absolutely set it up as a memorized transaction and save yourself from having to worry about making sure that you enter it. And obviously, you would go back and do your reconciliations every month to make sure that they've gone through, but you can set it up to take care of it for you. So that's another great feature to have within NetSuite. And you could also do your memorized transactions actually through here. So that's pretty great. And I think I'm going to ask you, and I am 99% sure that you're going to be setting up some memorized transactions for your comprehensive project, okay? And I do have slides and screenshots in week 1, I believe, okay? Next, lists, okay? So this is pretty fantastic. I want to know, what accounts do we have? What items do we have? What shipping items do we have? I come here and I run the search. I can look for a plethora of different type of accounts. I can go back and say accounting lists, select it. I can export my chart of accounts if I need it for any reason. I can print it directly from here. Employees, the same thing. Okay, so you had, I believe, in week 3 to edit your employee account. Okay, so all I want you to do was come to lists, employees, select employees. It'll take you to your employee page. If yours was blank, all I asked was that you clicked on new employee and that you set yourself up. Okay, if your account already had something associated or listed here, which was the account that you used to log in, then I asked that you just went in and hit edit and added your name to it to make it personalized. Okay, and then again, if you need a listing of, if this were full with 20, 30, 40 associates, you would come in here. Someone needs a list of all the associates, export, and out it goes. And again, it can be separated by job title, supervisor, department. So it's a great way to kind of integrate the ERP with payroll or human resources, because for many different reasons throughout a year you might want a listing of employees, whether it's for some type of festivity, or if it's for some other type of management reason. You have that listing available to you right here. List relationships, which is another great one. Our vendors, our customers, our contacts, our competitors, any leads or prospects that we might have. Commissions, employee schedules, employee plan assignments, okay, if you have a company that pays commissions. And then you can actually even integrate some of the your website management into NetSuite, which is really fantastic. Again, that one spot shopping type deal. But the most critical for us in this course are the lists for accounting and employees, okay? And then reports, which is probably the heaviest use of a computerized accounting system, okay? What do we want to see within the system? You go to financial, and there they are, okay? The purpose of accounting is to generate accurate financial reporting so that we're able to prepare our income statements, our balance sheet, cash flow statements, our general ledger, our trial balance, our chart of accounts. This is the bread and butter of accounting, being able to properly and accurately prepare information for our financial statement users, okay? In the comprehensive project, you're going to be asked to do some Excel integration, and you're going to be doing some work on the comparative balance sheet, I believe, and balance sheet and income statement. So you're going to have to come here. Okay. I'm just going to change to the other company so I can show it to you. So you're going to have to come here and download a comparative income statement for me. And then I'm going to ask you to perform some work on it in Excel. So you would go to the exporting function, okay, and then you would open it. And you're going to do some work on this spreadsheet for me. So this is where we talked about how our goal with this course is not just to teach you about NetSuite. 1/3 was teaching you about NetSuite. The next chunk is about, okay, we use NetSuite, we're entering all these transactions, we have all this information, now what do I do with this? And here is where we're going to show you what you're going to do with this, whether it's at work for yourself or for management, whatever the case may be. So this is the part 2, okay, to why we think ERPs are so valuable and so important. What else do we have under financial? So our basic financial reports that you're going to have to attach to your comprehensive project. Our inventory, so if we want to, you had a question that asked you to prepare an export of the current inventory status report. I believe this was your NetSuite activity week 3. So all you had to do was go to reports under inventory, to download the current inventory status, and then again, all I wanted you to do was to export it and then turn it into a clean report. So here's what it looks like as is. It's loading for us. So if you download the current inventory status, it looked something like this. Okay, lots of lines, lots of columns. Wow, you know, a little bit overwhelming. So what we asked you to do was take this and show me what you think a better version for reporting to your manager would be of this report. And I think I prepared one, and I'm going to see if I can find it here for us. I don't see it here, but I am going to upload it for us. What I would have done, or what I did do, was I said, you know what? I'm going to send this to my boss, and it looks very overwhelming right now. So let's open this up. That's relevant. Description, sure. Let's make that a little bit smaller. Even more so. And then I said I'm going to hide all the individual locations, and I'm just going to leave the totals. Big picture. Okay, so I said hide. Let's do that. Make it a little bit cleaner. And then if we want to see, if the your manager wants to see the breakdown by location, then they can go through and open it up. You know, make sure your font is all the same, you know, delete any gaps that maybe just make things look less desirable. Make sure all of your headings are on the same line. I like to center my description. If there's any value to you visually, you know, do you want to add some borders? Does it help? Should we highlight our totals? You know, the goal here is that when you prepare an Excel spreadsheet for someone, you want to make them not have to sift through so much data that they become overwhelmed and frustrated with what it is you've sent them. Okay, so just by doing something as simple as a little bit of bolding and color changing, you make sure that their eyes are attracted to the, you know, the end result here. And the end result here are these final totals. Okay, we can look quick. Okay, so for assembly materials, we have 3688 units that are on hand. We've got some on order that, you know, it's very easy to get to the bottom line. So that was really the goal of that exercise, was to show you we have it all uploaded in NetSuite, and now we need to get it to Excel. And then from Excel, we're still not done. We need to pretty it up, quote unquote, and then, you know, we'll have a report that's good enough to share within the company. So that's kind of what we wanted you to take away from that activity. Again, under reports, timing and billables, so that's another great one, again, just for job costing, purchases by vendor, purchases by item, your open purchase orders. So you can see that there's a ton of great reporting that's available to you within NetSuite. And what you're going to focus on for your comprehensive project will be specifically just for the financial reporting. Okay, we're not going to get into the other ones just yet. Okay, so this will be where you spend the bulk of your time when you're working on your comprehensive project. Again, our wonderful filing cabinet, our setup, we've talked about this. The other thing that we wanted to remind you guys of was, your help. Okay, you get stuck. This is your first stage of defense, and what's really fantastic is when I opened up right now this help center, because the last page that I was on was the current inventory status report, it automatically brings you to the help page for that. So that's a really great feature to see the linkage between, real time of what you're working on and NetSuite. So it knew that I was on the current inventory status page, and as soon as I hit help, it assumed that I wanted help on that. So that's pretty great. And if you can't find what you're looking for within here, like I told you guys before, you go on over to Suite Answers. Enter what it is you're having trouble with. And there's videos, there's all kinds of additional resources for you guys here within Suite Answers. So that's another great great part about NetSuite. You have this dual set of help. We talked a bit about our homepage. Okay, what I want you to remember again, your little hint is that the alternate name for the homepage is the dashboard. And one of the things that I love the most about the dashboard is that you're able to personalize it. Okay, if I was an accounts receivable manager, I could change my dashboard so that when I log in, I see stats. Okay, here we have employee records, but I would change it if I was in in accounts receivable, so that when I log in, my KPIs are showing me our accounts receivable aging, our current invoices, how much we were able to collect yesterday, and you can do all that depending on your role. You can change this homepage to show you whatever you want to see as soon as you log in first thing in the morning. So that's a really wonderful tool that's built within NetSuite. It's an immediate synopsis that you can create for yourself without having to go and start searching for, okay, financial, if I click on this, take me there. I want to see financial. No, it's not working for me. If I wanted to see my AP register, okay, which you would find under your reports. This was also, I believe, your Module 4 activity. Okay, we asked you to complete a pivot table based on the AP register. Okay, so this is the AP register that you need to find within NetSuite. But you could have, bill payments processed, etc., balances paid, all on your dashboard set up as your KPI. So that's another really great feature depending on your role. And I think that I've covered everything that you guys need, from modules 1, 2, 3, and 4. I've talked about a couple of the key points for the online quiz. So hopefully you guys were paying attention. I've touched upon the areas that you're going to have to use for your comprehensive project. Okay, so when you start working on that, come back to this, go back to the PowerPoints, and then obviously ask any questions that you need to ask. We'll make sure that that you get where you need to be. And again, be as hands-on as possible. If you're not going through and working in NetSuite, then you're going to have a harder time of just getting familiar with where everything is and how everything works. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed my tutorial and that it helped, and good luck to everyone. Thank you.